is the one and only Tom Carroll, appearing on the show for the third time. Thank you, Tom. Tom first appeared on the show back in February 2016 in episode number 2, and then again later that year in episode number 10, where he talked about big waves specifically in that episode. You know, Tom was the second guest. I already knew Tom through the gym that I was working at in Sydney, and you know, that's when I found out about Tom's knee. Tom's 2 world titles, Tom's Triple Crown, Tom's 26 World Tour wins, Tom's big wave surfing was all done on a knee that most people wouldn't even really get out of bed for. And in today's episode, we go into that. Now, the first half of this episode is actually a recording I did with Tom specifically for another podcast that I'm producing, which is a medical one specifically on osteoarthritis. So just bear that in mind. And then we do, through the last half of the episode, we transition into some surfing stuff. Tom talks about his experience in meditation, also what he's been doing for a lot of foiling. Tom has also recently had a total knee replacement, so we talk about that as well. I think there's a big misconception out there that a lot of people think that athletes have these amazing bodies that don't get injured and are all, you know, that all athletes are just freaks of nature that are super strong and bulletproof. But it's, you know, most athletes go through a lot of pain, a lot of injuries. It's just their love for their sport, for their craft, is more important than a bit of pain and a few injuries. It's certainly true with Tom, as you'll hear in today's interview. Tom is also becoming a meditation teacher, and June 21st to 28th this year, 2020, he will be hosting a meditation retreat at the Uluwatu Surf Villas in Bali. So details for that will be in the show notes and, of course, Tom's Instagram. The music that eased us in and that is playing underneath right now is an original instrumental piece by myself, and I will splice in a classic Aussie track to fade us out at the end. We're going to talk about managing chronic pain.
Yeah.
Because osteoarthritis is essentially it's a long-term thing, right?
Yeah.
It's not just, there's no cure yet per se, so you really kind of got to manage it.
Or dig it out and replace the part.
Yeah, but that's not going to work for everyone.
No way.
So most people that have osteoarthritis, especially if it's an early diagnosis, they're going to have to just manage the symptoms.
Yep.
But I think a lot of people with it, they kind of hear that diagnosis and they just think, oh, it's over. Like,
yeah.
No more footy for me. No more, you know, I'm just... It can make them more sedentary.
Absolutely.
Because of fear of, I don't want to make it worse or whatever.
Yeah, and as soon as you start turning off the body that way, even talking to it in a certain way, it can actually inflame the condition. That's what I noticed anyway.
Yeah, so doing nothing is the worst thing you can do.
Absolutely.
And probably, I'm guessing, doing too much is also the worst thing you can do.
Yeah, so you get really close to your body. That's the only... that was where I got my best results when I was treating it. Getting really close to it. And there was a period where I just really rejected my knee as something that wasn't a part of my body, and it got worse. So it is definitely going on in the back of my mind. You go, oh, doesn't even feel like a knee anymore. Like, it doesn't even feel like it's a part of my body. It got to that point. So then I got to start rejecting the knee. And that's on top of, like, not eating great food and trying to treat it with just anti-inflammatory drugs. And it just got worse.
So then what made it better? What did you learn out of that?
Well, I learned... I didn't understand. It was actually brought to my attention by my partner, Mary, who was seeing how I would talk to it or kind of carry on around it. I'd be out there pushing it. Like, I'm an active person. I want to be active. And I'd been dealing with this knee since I was 16. So it wasn't like a an odd thing for me. It was just getting a lot worse, and the knee was growing in size, so the body's responding by trying to grow on top of itself and multiply its sort of, osteophytes around the knee, so and the gouged out parts, or the parts that have been worn away, kind of chunky parts, try to grow around the outside of the joint to try and distance itself. It's kind of unique what it's doing, or amazing what it's doing to try and protect itself. But I'm like trying to be more active and go into the pain, but at the same time I'm telling it that it's not a part of my body. Does that make? Yeah. So I'm going, fuck this knee, like, it's not even a fucking knee. It doesn't even look like a knee. I'm like, it's not even, remember it's saying it. It's not even a knee, like, and Mary actually pulled me up. She goes, you can't talk to your knee like that. I'm going, I wasn't in the space to kind of hear that at the time. I'm like going, yeah, well, what am I supposed to say to it? She goes, you gotta love that knee. You gotta love it back, And I'm like going, and I was like, I just wasn't in a great space to kind of hear that at the time, and I had to really, but something in the back of my conscience sort of went, she's kind of right, she's right about something here, because it's a part of my body. I want it to operate well, and within its, whatever its capacity, because I'd spent many, many years of being quite unconscious around it by, pushing through its, I guess, its incapacity. It wasn't, it was weaker, so I had to make it stronger initially, get through all the surgery to get the reconstruction done early in the day in 81, and then I just worked really hard to get it back to as strong as possible. This is sort of going back, okay? So if I go back to those times, I used to really push myself hard and physically push myself, and I'd had enough of the knee. From 16 to 20 years old, it was just dislocating all the time because there was no ligaments from the acute injury. And when I was 16, tore all the two cruciate ligaments, posterior cruciate and anterior cruciate, and really stretched out the medial ligament, and the cartilage was mostly taken out because that's what they did back then. So it was just rubbing against itself.
So the original injury was when you were 16.
16.
And it was an impact injury that tore.
Yeah, impact injury to squash me towards my board, down, and bent my knee, squashed me into the board with the knee kind of tweaked in a lateral movement, and just dislocated it. That's when my first surgeon looked at it. He had a bow tie, and he looked at me across this big table, and obviously dealt with a lot of rugby players, and looked at me like a surfy kind of. This is 1977, so he looked across the table at me with this kind of like. He didn't even actually examine the knee like they do now. He just looked at me like I was a surfy guy, which I did have. 16 with long blonde hair, curly hair, and he goes, and I was just wrapped up in a bit of sort of elastic bandage, and he goes, well, I'll get the nurse to. And he just looked at it over the big table and looked at me and goes, he's got it wrapped. Okay, well, and asked me a few questions about what I was doing and what happened. He goes, well, Sonny, I'll get the nurse to measure you for crutches and keep it wrapped. Take these. I don't know what he gave me. And I was 16. I was just like, okay. And he goes, just keep it wrapped and use the crutches for 6 weeks and you'll be okay. And that's all I wanted to hear, really, at 16. I didn't want to hear anything else. Like, I didn't know. I didn't think I needed surgery. I was like, I could kind of walk around just about, by then. I think it was a couple of weeks later. But it was very unstable. But through the next 4 years, it came good. Being 16, I was just repaired fairly quickly. and I got really active again, and then just started dislocating from time to time, irregularly.
Oh, so you didn't get the surgery. You tore the ACL and the PCL.
Yeah.
And how long? So it was 4 years?
4 years.
So 4 years of
4 years
surfing.
of surfing, dislocation damage, a lot of different treatments. Like I went through, got opened up to all these different other treatments. Like, because just felt like he didn't know what he was. The longer I went into this sort of next 4 years, the realization that the doctor really didn't know what he was talking about, and I didn't know who to go to. I was just pushing forward, being this kid, really, like sort of just wanting to, get really good at surfing, and I could actually surf with this, quite heavy kind of handicap to the knee, but and I was creating a lot of damage to the interior the surface of the joint at the same time, and there was multiple dislocations. And that year I went my first trip to Hawaii, and it would fall apart at the inside Sunset, like in the white water, and I have to pull it back in. I got to a point where I could actually just pop it back in and just wait 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and I'm okay. So I got myself into a lot of pickle that way. But by the time I got 4 years later, I was actually saying goodbye to someone jumping over a fence, like literally jumping off a fence kind of thing, and then turning around, and I was landing on cement, and I was saying goodbye, and it was in the winter time. Oh, I think it was around June in 1981, and I was turning around to say goodbye as I was leaving, and I was landing on the cement, and I popped out backwards.
Ooh.
That way. I felt it pop that way, and I went, holy shit, and I hit the deck. And I'd never been in that position before where it did that. And then I went to get up, and I couldn't get up. I was like, this incredible pain in it. That's what drove me towards a surgeon who could actually do the job. And that was Merv Cross. He was turned out to be like this kind of legend later down the track. He developed a surgery. He'd had just developed a surgery with the hamstring, which kept the reconstruction surgery below 90 minutes. So the tourniquet wouldn't kill off the muscle while they're doing this sort of surgery, and they're trying to work out how to do it. And he was teaching all sorts of surgeons around the world how to do this surgery, and he was like a full-blown, like, yeah, you'll be right, Tommy, He grabbed my knee while I'm going to surgery, slapped my knee. You'll be right, Tommy. Are you sure? I wheeled into this surgery before they put you under, before you went into the surgery. So you get wheeled into the surgery, and you see all the saws and all the hardware along the raw walls and all the stuff. I wasn't really, what was it? And when they come out of the surgery, they do the surgery, take the hamstring, retie it through, and I didn't get to see the surgeon's report of the actual surgeon's report until I was 40 years old. I didn't get to see that. By the time I was 40 years old, so that's when I'm 20, I went through all that. As soon as the knee came together, and it was feeling solid, and I worked my guts out to get it really strong again, I just went hell for leather. Like, the knee wasn't even, a problem. And any kind of issue that came up, which is maybe a little tightness here and there, a bit of soreness, and every now and then a kind of odd pain that was hard to pinpoint, but within the joint, which now I recognise as maybe the precursor to osteoarthritis. I pretty much ironed it out, so I'd sort of ignore it. And I got to ignore through that. So from 16, you think about how much ignorance towards my body, towards my knee, would have had to happen for me to keep surfing and to get to a high level, to get to where I got to kind of push that aside and give everything else full priority and prefer to push it rather than to sort of listen to it. So that all comes to light down the track. So 40 years of age, I'm like, I can't do any sandhill running anymore. I can't do all this sort of stuff that I was really used to doing. And and at the same time as I'm about to call up Merv Cross to consult him on a knee replacement at 40 years of age, he's actually sent me a letter in the mail because he's doing a recall on all his ex-athletes who got these surgeries done.
A recall?
Just not a recall. I mean, just a study.
Oh, okay.
So he's doing a study on how they've gone. So he's doing a bit of a full written study survey really, and he by this time he's a bit of a guru, and he's got all these these doctors around him, and I go to his rooms and I'm sitting there and he walks in, all the white coats walk in, and I'm like sitting on this thing, and he goes, oh geez, he comes in, Tommy, here you go, the same guy, come here, Tommy, here you go, and slaps, there you go, and he goes, slaps me on the knee, and he goes, oh, that looks pretty good, doesn't it? He's pulling away at it, and he goes, yeah, the graft's still there. That's like fantastic, He's just the way he talks, and I go, no, it's not. So he goes, but you're right, Tommy. That's doing good. And I go, no. No, I'm sorry, but when can I get a knee replacement? And he looked at me straight in the eye. He goes, not for another 30 years, Tom. I go, my jaw dropped. And he goes, oh, but, see this doctor here, he can go in there. He's one of the doctors there. He goes, you can go in there and they can tap into the joint. They can tap on the surface of the joint to try and get the surface of the joint to sort of regrow itself. They do it quite often. But he said at that point he couldn't give me anything more than 33%. I think it was a third of people that came through the surgery would actually get a result. And I said, that's not enough for me to go in there and bang around on my joint. I'll just have to live with it. So I thought, God, 30, 70 years old, I've got to wait till 70. How am I going to pull this off? But basically that's where, there was things getting caught in there, like chunks were getting caught. So I remember he goes, look, you should go and get a clean-up done by the Dr. Stuart Watson, who was orthopedic surgeon who assisted him in the first surgery. And he was doing clean-up work and doing that other tapping work. So he's removing loose bodies. And so he did that surgery, and that actually sort of freed up the joint again. And gave me a little bit more. He said, this is about a 15,000 service, Tom. So on this, so that actually happened 2 more times before getting a replacement after that. But by at 40, when I had that consultation with Merv Cross, the joint had actually sort of grown, and I could still kneel down, and which I'd been doing a lot of in yoga. I found that kneeling down with a rolled up towel in between the joint, like that, and kneeling down on a bolster. So I've got my butt on a bolster, kneeling down, keeping the knees together, and opening up the knee joint like that, just subtly. Eventually gave it a lot of relief, and allowed once you pull back together, seems to get everything to breathe and get. So that was given to me by a yoga teacher in the late 80s, and he got me doing that regularly, and that actually helped it feel better, but not initially when we were first doing it, but after a little bit of practice at that started creating space and some relief in the joint. But by the time I was around 50 years old, I couldn't kneel down anymore. The joint had got too big. And through those years, I'd been sort of pretty much just still pushing my knee aside to everything else and trying to ignore it, not really using what later became really obvious after Mary saying, look, the way you're talking to your joint, of course, is going to be like crap. You're going to talk about that to your knee. It's going to be crap. And that's how I kind of behaved towards it for a long time. but that was becoming more and more heightened, that kind of language and behaviour towards it. But as soon as I started to work on turning that around, also include, working, putting a better diet into place.
So when was the official diagnosis of osteoarthritis?
Well, I could see some when I went in there, into surgery when I was 20.
Oh, really?
Yeah. When I looked at if I go back to when I read the report it would have been when I was 40, which is 2001.
How did that feel when you read that report?
It kind of freaked me out. Well,
Yeah.
there was already like a lot of damage in the joint.
Yeah.
No wonder I was having those bits of pain every now and then. I was really pushing it.
Mm.
I mean,
Obviously.
I wasn't really playing around. I was doing like strong sprint work, and I was doing sandhill running. I was doing,
and extreme surfing.
then pushing my surfing as much as I could. And that just got more and more through the 90s. I pushed it even harder, getting down lower on the board as much as I could. So I was just going a little millimetre lower on things creates a lot more stress.
So injury was at 16, surgery is at 20. They saw some osteoarthritis already. They didn't tell you.
No, they didn't really give me any.
And then I'm guessing it was in a cast.
I was in a cast for 6 weeks, bent like that.
Yeah.
And now they don't do that.
Not at all.
No,
Yeah,
not at all.
no,
So I'm
yeah.
like that for a car. When I come out, there was the muscle had gone, and I had to. And they didn't really give me like a program. They kind of went, you just do a couple of things with your feet with a ferroband, and that was it. I didn't really, and then maybe do some straight leg raises, with So I had to kind of work on my own program, and that kind of taught me how to work out really and get going.
How long did it take before you sort of got back into surfing after the surgery?
I was in about 4 months.
Wow,
I was
it's fast
surfing.
for back then. That's fast for now.
Yeah, I pushed it.
Yeah.
I wasn't going to sit around, and I was doing everything. I was actually paddling on a surf ski with my cast with a
It's keeping your paddle fitness up.
Yeah, and I was paddling out. I was going surf on the peak on a go boat. So I can't stay out of the water, but I was doing everything I could. I was swimming, but as soon as I got the thing out and it wouldn't bend, it meant it wouldn't move. It'd stay bent. So I had to try to swim with the bent. Oh, it was really painful, but I got it to kind of move more when in the water. So it was over that summer of 1981 and 82.
And then when you got straight back into competing?
Got straight in. I was competing almost by the time. So the surgery was on November 4, 81, and I was surfing in March.
Competitively?
Yep.
Wow.
So I was.
Were you surfing through pain?
It wasn't too bad.
Wasn't too bad.
No, it wasn't too bad. I was actually so stoked that the knee was staying together. Like,
Yeah.
it was actually holding up, and I was going, this thing's staying together. I can push this thing. And so, and I continued to work out on it all that year, traveling with using weights and squatting and doing various things to get this thing going again. But I started having a really good year, like competitively. I started lifting my game, and I ended up getting second to Mark Richards at Bells. So all that focus on getting the knee going, it gave me a lot of other focus and concentration and just froth for surfing. It was beneficial.
So when did the knee start to become painful?
I'd say in my late 30s. It really it was really painful. It'd go through phases, and I'd get inflammation. I was pushing my surfing then too. I was sort of looking at sort of toe-in surfing and all that sort of stuff. And I was loving all kinds of sports, like I was really getting into snowboarding, all that sort of stuff. And I just expected so much of my body. But the pain and the inflammation, I just get this burst of inflammation, which would just come out of nowhere, where it wouldn't be explained by exercise. It would be other elements. And now I realise back, it's probably sugar and dietary affected inflammation in the joint, and it was hot and warm and yeah, just painful.
So you still didn't know that you had osteoarthritis, and you still didn't know much about
I
diet.
I just got the knowledge at that around 40.
Yeah.
When I was 40.
So when in your late 30s or mid 30s, and you didn't know, but you were still dealing with it.
Yeah.
How did you deal with it? How did you manage it?
Well, like I said, I think part of my brain was really I was so determined to kind of be physical and engaging on everything that I was doing. I was just pushing through pain all the time. For the most part, pushing through pain in the knee and actually adjusting my surfing accordingly, kind of adjusting my style. I stayed pretty fit and strong. Like I was doing this kind of crazy workouts too with Rob Roland Smith, the Sand Warrior. I started working out with him in my 30s, and we were doing like kind of 2-hour workouts, both in his backyard and running sand hills and stuff. So I was pretty good at ignoring the pain, pushing it to the side. And I guess it comes out in other ways, kind of some sort of, it seemed to focus and make me more determined at times.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And then so you found out about the diagnosis at 40.
Yeah.
Did that change your
No, I didn't
perspective,
change straight away. I was kind of shocked when I read it. I'm going, oh man, I've had this. This has been a really damaged joint, like a lot more damage than what I thought. And no wonder I'm suffering. No wonder I want to have a replacement joint now. I even was looking at partial replacements, and I found someone in Hawaii that had a partial replacement at 42, and actually it worked for him. And I went through, and that was probably when I was 46, 47. And I was really determined to get that done, but then I kind of went off that track and decided not to do that and tried to hold out. I thought, okay, then I sort of hunkered down and thought I'm going to hold out and for as long as I can with this and do the best I can with it. I got to about 52, around 52, 51, 52. Where I was really like, okay, I got to really start looking seriously at doing this, because it was by then I couldn't do any kneeling at all. I hadn't been able to do that for a while, but I was still trying to get partially there. But the joint became so big, and I was using a lot of Voltaren, the 25s, to doubling up on those, having 50 milligram of Voltaren if I was about to do some exercise, and then after it, so it'll be a before and after exercise thing. They'll give me some sort of my mind a bit of relief, and but the inflammation was still there. It doesn't really do much. Well, it's supposed to be anti-inflammatory, probably does some sort of, but when it's this bad, it's still inflamed, and I'd have to ice and compress. So I had a lot of compression on a lot of time. I'd compress it more than ice it, and elevate it at night. So I got really into doing the elevation and compression, and then ice, or even cool, anything cool on it. Keeping it cool was really good. Like I know now today, if I could have had one of those ice water cooling things that goes wraps around your leg and you got it running through you around, and you could have wear one of those all night. It'd be your knee would be much. My knee would be. I tried that a couple of times with a friend's one and later down the track, and that actually helped it feel better the next day.
Mm. So how old were you when Mary pointed out, look, you can't hate the knee, kind of?
Yeah, which was really challenging when she said that. I was like 53, I think.
Because it's interesting because arthritis is autoimmune,
Right.
which is your immune system killing your own body, which is totally in line with the way you felt about your knee. So it makes sense.
Yeah.
Like you were almost giving in to the disease
Yeah.
on a different level.
Yeah. Oh, way back in there, and underneath everything, the belief system was, this knee's fucked. Like, it's fucked. It's not. I've written the knee off. I'm going to get it replaced one day, so I've written it off. So as soon as that's said to the body at a deeper level, I'm sure it has all these implications. All these crazy implications to the system and what it's actually how it's acting around.
And when did that change? Did it change?
Yeah, it changed a bit. Like quite a bit. Like I started to just try to change my language around it. Like started changing my language around. Sort of stop. I stopped talking to it like it was a bad thing. I started. I wouldn't say being really kind. Like I was more like my actions were more kind to it. I struggled with the language, but I had to I knew that I needed to pull away from talking to it in such a bad way. Well, a negative way towards it. So I just pulled up on that sort of behaviour, and also I went into an anti-inflammatory diet. Pulled away from any kind of like heavy sugars. Started just experimenting with diet more towards just fruit and veggies, some grains, but basically pretty much getting rid of the processed foods as much as possible.
How did it change things? Like, what did you notice when you changed your diet?
The joint it actually responded better to the anti-inflammatory drugs, and on top of that, it cooled down the knee a little bit, like it wasn't as hot all the time, which is a real indication of the condition flaring. So it cooled down. I felt lighter in my body. Yeah, I just felt like I could just do more stuff on the knee without it flaring up. And it gave me probably a few more years of just a little bit, just ramp the reaction in the body down, just pulled it down. But it was still there. I'm not saying it's not, but
it does make a difference.
Makes a definite difference.
Yeah.
I'd say 30-40%.
Which is huge.
Which is huge, and a great deal of like I'd get up in the morning, I could get up and go. Like it wasn't like I was, I've got to kind of manage this thing straight away.
So you're basically cutting out sugar and processed foods.
Sugar and processed foods, getting as much sugar out of like any sort of processed food out of the diet, just getting that stuff out, and just my whole system felt better for it anyway. So eventually, the knee was still getting bigger because it keeps reacting to the amount of. Well, as soon as I start feeling that freedom, I'm off and away, and I start creating more pressure on the knee, and so this creates. And as you get older, the knee actually wants to do it more. So that's that was my experience, and then I was doing things like surfing the Eddie Caravan and things like that, and surfing some big waves, and took a big hit at Himalayas on a really big wave, and that was when, it took a chunk out of the knee in the wipeout.
Oh.
And I went to get up. I was picked up by Cole Christensen actually, and he grabbed me, and I got up on up on the sled, and I went to jump up on the back seat, and I went, like I just knew something crap had just happened to my right knee, and I didn't even feel it when the wipeout happened. But when I went to get up on the ski, it's just the message was something really crap about your knee right now, Tom. So I found out, I went and did this X-ray and MRI, in Hawaii, and the eddy was coming up. There a couple of big swells where that was in 2016, and that was a big year, January, and it was a big year. And I went back to Australia. I thought I'd just had to throw my hands up at the eddy and not bother about it, and get this thing taken out. So what happened was the eddy was called off on that swell, and then I got better in that little gap, and I could manage the little chunk. I ended up surfing the eddy with a chunk hanging out in between the joint. But I don't know why I did that. But that was like the pinnacle of just, in a way, kind of trying to push everything to the side, and then going out. But it just gives you more fear, which is no good. Another added layer of fear, but which doesn't help the situation. Then I went to get the piece taken out. That worked okay. And then I got caught wrapped around a piece of a coral head in Fiji a little later on the year. And that was when I got another chunk. I got squashed. If I went into flexion like that with my old knee, I would be taking chunks off. And so I just threw my hands in the air then. And I started I'd done some research with doctors about getting TKR, and I went to 2 more doctors and finally made a decision on a doctor and went for it the next year in 2017.
Okay. But, it does speak to something which is, you had osteoarthritis for a long time, and you won a world title.
Yeah.
Or 2 on...
2, yeah.
With the osteoarthritic.
26 career victories and all that sort of stuff. Yeah.
Blah, 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 all that stuff that everyone already knows about. All that stuff happened with very primitive ACL reconstruction and osteoarthritis. So...
So kind of basically surf with one leg. I was really... everyone goes, you're such a back foot surfer. I'm going, I'm just kind of in the back. I was going, I'm just trying to make do with what I got.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's, it does speak to an extreme way that, it doesn't have to be the end of your life.
Absolutely not. And I think at the end of the day, the injury itself taught me so much about how to deal with myself, I think, and actually sort of taught me how to it taught me to get closer to my body. Even though there was times when I was ignorant and went into ignorance around it, just to survive it. A coping mechanism, it can be ignorance, so. But it certainly was a coping mechanism for me for a while, just to get by and get things done and kind of live each day. Because I'm being a really physical person and someone who really loves surfing, proper loves it. There's not even a question that I just love doing it each day, and it gave me more than just the physical benefits. It gave me so much more, but I wasn't going to stop because this was holding me back.
The love of surfing was more important than a bit of knee pain.
Yeah. So it did create quite a bit of that ignorance, which I didn't get to treat it. And I didn't know. I had no... First of all, the anti-inflammatory drugs, before I went... I haven't had any anti-inflammatory drugs since I've had the total knee replacement, which is saying a lot. I was a really good customer. In fact, I had a source when I was in Hawaii where I could double the guy, get this doctor He'd give me 50 milligram ones. I'm like, could never get them here, but they really help. So,
So what advice do you have to someone who's just a normal person who just wants to maybe
do the gardening,
do the gardening, maybe someone younger who wants to play a little bit of touch footy in the weekends or whatever, and any advice for those sort of people about how to manage their arthritis? And
well, my experience is when I stopped doing things, when I slowed down on moving, when I stopped moving the joint, it got worse. So movement was really important, even against that kind of, if you need to take anti-inflammatories, which will reduce that, especially before and after the exercise, I recommend it because it'll help you stay active, and also the muscle groups around stay active. As soon as the muscle groups get inactive around the joint that's suffering the arthritic condition, the osteoarthritis, that's when the joint gets worse, because the muscles really support the joint. The muscle activity and actually the way the sequence of the muscles work kind of demand you not to think so much about the joint, more so about the actual action you're doing. So if you're playing, just running, say your running movement, you've got to think every time your foot hits the ground. You've got to think about that every time as you're having a jog. If you're going for a 10k jog or something, if you had to think about that every time, it would be so exhausting. So and the body, it'd get dull anyway. But to have it automatically all work in sequence, you don't want to have that pain response all the time in the joint, because the pain response is what's going to stop you from doing something, pull you back, and so the muscles stop working, and the muscle atrophy and the muscle inactivity is what we don't want. That was my experience. So I had to kind of push through to keep that moving and to work as much as I could on that sequence of muscle firing. So at least there was some sort of support for the joint. And I did that all the way to the end. And I got more and more, I think that was probably, a way that got me going. And also, just make sure you're eating good food, putting really good high quality food into the system, good nutrients. Like do exercises for the body that don't include that joint. So don't do complex exercise for it, simplified exercises for it, and then do something that's only really involves the other part of the body. So you kind of send the messages right through the whole system. So if, swimming without, say from a knee, it's just swimming with a pool boy, like swimming so the upper body's working, so all that sort of thing. So you kind of get a cross-up of exercise throughout the whole body. The body wants that. The body loves that. So you're sending messages throughout the whole body.
So did you feel like if you didn't do exercise, the pain was worse?
Yep.
Interesting. And if you did too much, it got worse as well. So there's like there's a middle ground, yeah?
There's definitely a middle ground.
Yeah, so everyone has to find that, what is their middle ground.
And you'll feel it.
Yeah.
You'll feel it. But the funny thing was that, I had my deep frustrations with that too. Like it was tricky to find that, because there was sometimes during the period when I didn't know I had osteoarthritis, there was times when it was painful. I was wondering, what is that pain? I can't tell. And particularly on the outside of it, in this one particular point where there was quite a bit of wear and tear, I found out. But I was always going, why is that pain all of a sudden there? And so it was hard to know, and it was stopping me from really doing stuff at that point. It might only last half a day, or a few hours, or maybe one day, but it would usually come after a really heavy day of surfing, or really heavy day like snowboarding, or somewhere where I'd have to do a lot of complex exercise over on top of the knee. Complex exercise, I mean by doing something that I don't want to think about. I'm doing something like surfing where it's really, or it's not like a simple squat routine.
What were the like? How do you describe the symptoms of the arthritis pain? Like,
Like this kind of achy, focused ache, like around the area, but seemed to just radiate out from there. So, and it'd be kind of around the whole, somewhat, even though it'd be one particular part of the joint, it'd radiate through the joint. That was there, that'd appear, and then it would come with a heat. Even though the heat was there for a lot of the time, the pain wasn't always there. The heat and the inflammation would just ramp up a bit. So I could feel, and sometimes it'd come with quite a bit of inflammation.
Was it sharp pain?
Sometimes sharp. Sometimes it would be sharper than others. Like I could lean, and again, it would be unexplainable. Sometimes why that would be sharper all of a sudden. Like, oh God, why is it all of a sudden have to be sharp this afternoon? I didn't really go that hard today, or this morning, or the night before, doing something. A workout it might have been, or I might have played a game of. I might have had to run through the rain, say from the car to the shop, and it was a little bit extra long run because it's pouring down with rain, and I've got some stuff that I've got to get from the shop to the car, and it's a big, something like that. Or I've got to run across the road, or I've got to, we're all running up the beach doing something because we're being silly, or, playing a game of touch football or something because I can't not be involved, right? Later I'd pay for that, and sometimes I knew that I was going to pay for that.
But it was worth it?
It was worth it at the time.
Yeah.
But sometimes...
So you just had to make sure that, okay, I'm gonna do half an hour of touch footy.
Yeah.
Tomorrow I'm just going to rest. Is that how you would...
I could do that from time to time, and that's how I sort of pretty much managed, but I knew that either a couple of hours to the next day after the exercise, I'd start to feel a change in the joint, and that sort of pain just slowly ramp up. It would be slowly come on.
You get the diagnosis of osteoarthritis, and you're like... You lose all hope. Like, oh no, I can't.
Yeah.
Now, someone who's in that situation right now, who feels like they've lost all hope for them gardening or playing a bit of touch footy or running around with the kids or whatever they cherish doing, what advice do you have? Like,
I would gonna say a good physiotherapist who knows about this condition, who treats people with this condition. See what sort of exercise you can do to support the body in this, not that, movements that you might be able to do to keep moving the body. And don't go and lie down forever. Don't just, I guess in a way, be really kind to yourself at the same time. Look at what you're doing in your life, that you can improve the chances of your body, taking up the slack around it, which means, like maybe changing your diet. Have a look at what you do. Try to drop the alcohol if you can. Like, I think alcohols seem to be, I remember back, I haven't drank any alcohol for like 13 years or something, and that was from another reason, but it's like, and I would say, like, from suffering from drug addiction, I think the drug addiction, when I look back at it, I was dealing with things with drugs at another level, at an emotional level. So, and there was quite a few years there with using kind of like amphetamines. There was like, I wouldn't even feel it. So there was no, that was a really particularly, I wouldn't say that's not a great strategy. It actually has a really heavy end point, but people don't come out of it. But I think that was part of kind of running away from it, the condition. So kind of go into the condition. If I can make it kind of point of that go into it and face into it.
So
and
take ownership.
Take ownership of that condition which is within you. And from that point you can deal with it. You're actually really dealing with it and directly. And get moving. Like keep the body moving. Try to drop the alcohol, because I know that when I was drinking alcohol, it would flare up and be more uncomfortable, just as a result of drinking alcohol. When I stopped drinking alcohol, it definitely sort of mellowed out, and gave my body more chances of dealing with it without pain, so much pain and discomfort. Get really good dietary advice. Look into the anti-inflammatory diet. There's a lot to be said for plant-based diet, but that's not for everyone. I wouldn't say that plant-based is it's not ideal for everyone, but sort of definitely ramp up your intake of green vegetables and just good solid high quality nutrient food.
Yeah. And what about in terms of like the mental side of it, the emotional side of it? Like any advice dealing with that?
Yeah. Well, I think it's nice to. I think any of these sort of conditions, my mental approach to it was quite aggressive. So chilling that down is a good idea. So I found out that I started meditation for a whole other reason, but it's definitely helped me on my emotional stability, and that a meditation practice can be brought in, and that helps. It helps actually. A lot of us can't. I mean, I couldn't sit still prior to practicing meditation. Actually taught me how to sit still, and I think that really helped me kind of get a better view of who I was with what was going on. I guarantee that gave me a better view of what was, a much more steady view. So steadying the mind with it will give you, from my experience, it gave me a better position within myself, and able to sort of make better decisions around it.
So meditation, I second that.
Yeah, it's a good idea, I think.
Yeah. What style do you practice?
I use the Vedic meditation practice, which uses a mantra. Mantra is mind vehicle. So use a vehicle to transcend the mind activity. So we do that. I practice twice a day for 20 minutes. So that's something I've worked toward. I wouldn't say that's for everyone either. Even if you start off with just a few minutes of mindfulness in the morning when you wake up.
Yeah.
And the thing is, it's funny when I heard Seinfeld, he does the TM as well. It's the same as transcendental meditation. And he practiced it. He thought he was only supposed to do 20 minutes when he first woke up. And he did that for some years. He didn't know the second practice in the afternoon was a part of it because the teacher didn't give it to him. But he found out the second one was, and when he started doing that, he said, "Oh, that completely doubled up the benefits doubled up." He said, like more than doubled, he said. But he said also, he goes, "It didn't make sense. Why do I have to get up in the morning and meditate?" I love this thing. He goes, "But if you put a camera in the room and watch you when you sleep and what you do when you sleep, there's a lot of exercise when we sleep. We're flipping and flopping around, we're moving around, we're all over the shop and talking and carrying on and stuff. So the mind's super active when we're sleeping. So I've found that that advice that was given to me to get up first thing and sit and practice some meditation, and that's been my experience, incredibly beneficial for the last 13 years. Mm.
And can you point people that want to find out more about Vedic, point them in the right direction?
Yeah. Okay, so the Vedic meditation is you just punch it in on
Google it.
Google it.
Yep.
Google Vedic meditation. It's the same as transcendental meditation.
Okay.
And there's transcendental meditation. You can get to teach it, get taught that anywhere, pretty much in the world. It's everywhere. And I would say any kind of meditation. It doesn't have to be that kind of meditation. It's like all meditation is good. It's not one is better than the other. It is through personal experience that I kind of mention it. It's something that's been super beneficial.
Yeah. No, I second that as well. Meditation can be life-changing.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Especially particularly when we've been the one just running around, just getting dragged around by our own head. And all of a sudden you put this in and you go, oh my God. So this is what they're talking about.
Yeah. So there is hope for osteoarthritis.
I think
patients.
Definitely there's a lot of hope. Right now I feel like I'm suffering a bit of it in my foot, in my right foot, from so much surfing. And I got to look at it and I also lost a tendon this year, the posterior tibialis tendon, which it pulls the arch up in the foot.
Ouch.
And I got a fin chop, and it literally, and that tendon you can't really replace. It's sort of like, if you tied like a rope between that corner of the room and that corner of the room really tight, and then you chopped it, they just ping. You can't reconnect it, even with a bit of prosthetic or a bit of grafted tendon. You can't do it. So he said, Tom, we don't want to do that surgery because not many successful ones come out of that. So what's happened now is my foot it wants to fall in the arch, and I'm starting to get some pain in the ball of the foot, and that's from doing exercise and working on it and trying to get the arch in another way.
You could look at the Yamuna Footsavers. Have you seen them?
No.
So they're kind of like you get or even just get a lacrosse ball.
Yeah.
Like those hard rubber balls, and just hacksaw it in half. And you got two sort of semi-dome, like two domes, and you can stand on them.
Right.
And you can just sort of, then your foot will take that shape of that arch. You can stand on different parts.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
Oh, I'll take.
And you sort of use your own muscles to take the shape of that form as well. So get some of the muscles that create that curve in the foot to wake them up a little bit.
Oh, cool.
Those are good.
I'll check that out.
But yeah,
when if you get lacrosse balls in Australia?
You can, yep. You definitely can. Amazon. Get anything.
Amazon. I'll drop it at the door.
I've got both. Yamuna Footsavers are slightly smaller in diameter.
How do you spell Yamuna?
Yumuna, I think. Yamuna. And they're a bit softer. The rubber's a little softer, and it's also hollowed out a little bit, so it's a bit more give than the lacrosse ball. But I used both of those things for my feet because I get foot tightness that loosens them up. So, did you cut it on a foil?
No, it was just a fish. Those the fish keels, and it had a little edge to it. It was Dick Van Stralen, beautiful fish. And I was just riding. I was about to send it back to him. I thought I'd better have one more surf on that board, and it got me.
Bugger.
Yeah, and it went deep, and it was just a small cut. And I've gone, something really different about this cut. And I had a weird sort of cramp after. I'd never had this cramp, like right up into the leg. And I was like, what the fuck's going on here? And it was just this tiny little cut that I didn't even hardly see. It was like that long, 2 stitches. And it was just perfectly in the spot. It couldn't have been the most perfect hit right there. and the two tendons come. There's the one that joins up to all these guys. It comes underneath, and there's the tibialis posterior that just underneath the Lisfranc joint, and it spreads underneath the left and pulls right up in the big long muscle behind the tibialis that actually holds that arch up. And now I've got to try and hold the arch up with my toes, and it's kind of interesting, and it's still working.
Yeah, it's amazing that the body adapts.
Yeah. And it's all on the prosthetic joint and knee. So that adds to the challenge.
You're just destined to be a back-footed surfer, right?
No, that's it. I'm really on the back foot, like fully. But foiling, talk about foiling, that kind of almost demands me to be somewhat even in a more delicate fashion than on a board. And learning this new way of kind of turning out of the top of the wave and trying to do it and really being, like enthusiastic about it. Like I come out of that and going, like the whole thing's just going, what are you doing, Tom? I'm going, no, but you can do it, And then these sort of, I think it's actually helping. I think it's actually really helping to get that strong, and get it all kind of talking to itself really well. Mm.
Yeah, okay, so you had total knee replacement.
Yep.
When was that?
April 28, 17.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's been 2.5 years?
Yeah. I think it's even improving now. Like
still, yeah.
Still improving. Like feels like I've got a chance of improvement.
Yeah.
Through it.
And are you glad that you had that done?
Absolutely. Yeah. It's like it was such a freaky decision to make because I was so attached to that fucked up old knee. I thought I was going, am I going to be able to do this and that and this? But there was quite a couple of really good examples of guys, my age and younger that actually had them and really, and older too, who had actually gone to do all their sports and what they love doing. And I just wanted to surf, like some decent sized surf and push it a bit. And my doctor was just like, I've got it. He goes, I've got a bad one on my hands here, a sketchy one on my hands. His assistance on my case quite a bit, but he was a bit wary of me. But I said, I went through these surgeons and I went, no, you're the guy. Because I was actually looking for a surgeon to make the decision for me because I just didn't want to make the decision. But they don't want to. They just go, no, you've got to make the decision, buddy. It says a lot about me. But I went to 4 surgeons. I finally found Dr. David Parker, who I found that after talking to the physiotherapists of the surgeons that treated their patients, I got more information from them about how the patients came out.
Oh yeah, that's good advice.
Because you can talk to the surgeons, and the surgeons are really know what they're doing. I mean, they're incredible people. They're amazing at what they're doing. They're like this finely tuned mechanics, and they're really really good ones to really see the outcomes and stuff, and they're involved in the outcomes. But it's the physiotherapists that do the real hard yards with the patient, and from all levels, not just the physical level. They say physiotherapists, but they're doing the other mental work as well.
Oh yeah, they're coaches. Yeah,
they're coaching the person through some of the most painful work they'll ever have to do. In particular, people who've never been physical, or never been in a gym, or never done anything before in their life, and they've got to rehab this new joint that's totally foreign to their body. Yeah.
So, successful knee surgery then, knee replacement.
Oh yeah, really. I'm really feel really.
And you're still surfing lots on it. It's fine.
I just love surfing on it. Yeah, the thing does the job. I mean, I definitely just tight. There's certain tightnesses because I push it a bit. And I'm trying to get everything to wake up and get stronger in the hip and in in the glutes and the actual groin muscles, and I've been working in yoga and in balancing workouts in the gym, using Swiss ball and Bosu ball and cable row and TRX bands and stuff like that to kind of create kind of tensions and balance work and the kettlebells. So doing stuff like that to kind of challenge the overall complex movement of balance.
Getting stronger.
Yeah. Yeah.
And foiling on it.
And foiling, yeah. I wouldn't think it was foiling on a prosthetic knee, that's for sure.
Yeah, wow. It's holding up. How's the foiling journey?
It's weird. I never thought I'd be on a foiling journey. It's freaking awesome. It's like one of the most amazing feelings. It's really different than actually riding a wave with a board. It's that's why I love it, because it's so different. It's really a big challenge to kind of keep that foil and understand and read water differently. It's opening my eyes to all these ways of. I mean, I want to ride small waves. I'm not into like doing the big wave stuff that Led's doing, or some of the guys are doing. I'm nowhere near any of that stuff. I got a little kind of spark in me that wants to do it, but learning at the moment just to get around and it feels amazing. It's like flying. It's like flying.
Yeah, it looks amazing. It looks so efficient as well.
Super efficient. It slips into the foil slips into that bubble of energy that's sort of, like that. Sort of, it kind of what the dolphins or, tap into, that energy, and the foil slips into that. There's this sort of free movement, that glide that you might get on a fish board, on like a really flat straight board, or a little concave over on, and you got a fish and you just get out on the bump of the wave and you're flying along on the bump and there's hardly any wave, and that's kind of a little bit foil like, but it's hard to explain. And then, but to balance up there and to keep it going and keep it level and sort of then start to surf it and then bring surfing into it, because you got to take surfing out. The surfing program has to taken out to learn it, which is really good. I think that for me it was really good, because it actually gave me a lot of enthusiasm for surfing, because as soon as I got back in on something I knew, and it kind of threw it out, and I had to kind of recheck in on my surfing, and it puts me into these funny positions with something I thought I knew really well. So I'm kind of, it challenged me on all these different levels. It's cool.
And you showed me your foil. Shout out to the makers of the foil.
Yeah, Armstrong Foils. Yeah, the boys over there in New Zealand. They have done an exceptional job at putting their foil systems together, and just creating a beautiful, like, super swift foil. They're really efficient in the water, and they're just a really solid unit. Everything just fits really sweet and it's solid. You want that in the foil, and you just don't want any give in the foil.
So how would you describe your relationship to the ocean currently?
It's just evolving. I feel really at home in the ocean. That's my home. In a way, you could call it my spiritual home. That's kind of one of those spiritual homes where I feel it's incredibly important to me. Yeah.
Does it ever have any? Do you ever feel like it's got something over you?
I think it's got a lot over me.
Yeah?
Yeah. It's too big to even fathom. You know what I mean? Like, you think about how big that thing is out there. And the movements and the grand kind of movement of the ocean, how it moves. It's so massive. And it's like... but she welcomes me every time with open arms. So I go with her, and I just stay alert to all her warnings. and try to really respect every warning sign that she offers, because she's throwing them out there all the time. And
Yeah.
mm.
So you're doing you're starting to do meditation trips?
Yeah, teaching meditation. I'm in the middle of the teaching course at the moment, and super interesting for me to get to the point of teaching, because I struggle with the idea of myself being regarded as a teacher, but and that's got to get broken down, because I really want to get this into people. For me, seeing people benefit from giving them some meditation, the benefit is like profound. Like it's such a profound benefit. So, and it being such a need of the time at the moment, I think the more people I can get get a practice of meditation in too, the absolute better. Like that's the better we can all get going in our lives. And so that's what I'm moving towards doing. I've got a retreat in June in Bali at the Uluwatu Surf Villas from the 21st to the 28th of June.
Yeah.
And also looking to do one on the east coast of the US.
Yeah.
At North Carolina, the Outer Banks there, with the Real Water Sports crew out there. And we haven't set dates yet, but that's looking pretty good.
Okay. Cool.
I'll do a bit of surf coaching in that too.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, within that.
Oh, that sounds rad. Do you know, someone always said to me, like, to teach, you actually don't have to know that much. Because if you're one page ahead of someone on a book, you can teach them that book. Do you know what I mean?
I get you.
If you only have to know a little bit more, but if you can stay calm and humble and teach that person the right thing, that's the most important thing.
Yeah,
you're always going to have more knowledge than other people. That's literally one page ahead in a book. You can teach it. Do you know what I mean?
That's a nice way of putting it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
that helps me a lot, because I tend to want to know it all, but it seems pretty impossible. Or think that I have to be an encyclopedia for people, but it is. I'll be falling back on a tradition that is thousands of years old. So I'm not, and I'll be falling back on that. It's not, and it's quite simple. There's not.
The principles are always there. You can always refresh on them. I think in my experience, like teaching people about meditation and having been to teachers, it's the objections that you come up with that they go, no, that's bullshit. It's not like that. It's, if everyone says, "Oh, I tried to meditate, but I can't." It's the classic one.
Yeah. Or they see someone like in a photo of them, someone meditating, and they're like in that meditation thing. They're cross-legged and they're on a rock in the middle of some sort of beautiful beach with the sun sort of doing something. So it's all beautiful, and they're just sitting there, all peaceful, quiet. I got a crack up on that, because it's like, and most people are looking at, I can't do that. Like that. Of course you can't. Like it. It's a funny one. It's like what we put out there's, but for me, just sort of bringing people into the practice, getting them to self-realize on it, and support them in that journey. Yeah, it'll be so cool.
There's so many misconceptions around meditation. I think it's this big thing that only certain people can do, but no, it's not really, is it?
I'm a really good meditator. And so one of the best things, I'm a meditator. Like when I'm walking around, I meditate. It's like it's gold. I think it's one of the most beautiful, most important things for us to move toward, and for the mind, because everything starts with a thought. So when we get close to understanding that a lot of the thoughts pretty whacked, so and having a chance maybe at seeing it, then we're going to give the ripple effect of that is just phenomenal. Getting to realize, to self-realize in that area, that our thoughts are just thoughts. We don't have to buy into them all. That's the good one.
What do you say to people that say, "Oh, I get my meditation in the surf"?
Well, okay, that's okay. I think that's all right, but it's not formal practice. Formal practice puts us into, a preference. We're making a preference to put ourselves into the practice of sitting with ourselves, and in that practice, in stillness. I mean, it's not always like there's very rarely much stillness, and it takes a little while to get to any sort of stillness, but maybe many years. So, but with practice, it's attainable, and it is a practice. So, getting just to observe ourselves and our condition as a practice on a regular basis, in your preferred environment, doesn't this, and in a still setup. It's not like you're distracted by movement and getting shoved around by the ocean, even though you can become super present with it.
Yes,
and that different. Is a practice in itself. It's different.
Yeah, it's very different.
Yeah, so it's hard. Yeah, so coming back to here is practice on a regular basis in the Vedic practice is to I sit up with a straight back. That's all. With your shoulders off the chair, you can you don't have to cross your legs if you don't want to. It's very sort of simple.
Yeah, I think people are scared of it as well.
Oh yeah, I know some people that
I don't want to sit still and listen to that thing.
Yeah,
I need to be distracted. I need to.
I want to talk.
Yeah,
I want to talk to someone. Yeah, I need to talk to someone. I want to say something. So, talking is really is a big one. My daughter does the Vipassanas, does the 10-day silent meditation retreats, and she's done a couple now, and it's she comes back really centered, really clear, super clear, and she gets super uncomfortable out there, sitting in silence. It's like, pain comes into the body in all these different areas, and it dissolves as well. So you think you're not going to make it, and you can't somehow get through, and the body shifts the pain, and it's just amazing how she describes it. I mean, I'm not there yet, but perhaps sometime down the track. But if you that's the different level. But just putting in 5 minutes of practice. They call it a practice, and meditation really is just a setup. So it's not like I'm achieving anything. It's just sitting.
It's a practice, not a performance.
Yeah, it's a practice. So as we practice sitting with ourselves and giving ourselves that 5 minutes or whatever, 20 minutes, whatever it is, you're actually giving yourself this space. And all of a sudden all these cool things start to happen. Like the nervous system starts to tone. The nervous system starts to recalibrate. And that's kind of what's going on between the body and the mind. This nervous system's gone from this really shaky place to all of a sudden to a more solid place. So it's becomes more sturdy as a result, and gets a whole bunch of things get resolved in that without us in the way. So that's been my experience, and that's by not going for achievement, not trying to have a goal. Literally, the word try sounds absurd. Yeah.
Meditation.
Yeah.
So can people find out more about your...
Yeah, you can go on the Uluwatu Surf Villas website. That's uluwatusurfvillas.com, and just follow the links to events, and that goes to the Tom Carroll Journey Through Meditation with Tom Carroll.
Okay.
And we still haven't got anything. We're just working on a program for Real Water Sports over there on North Carolina and the Outer Banks.
You'll put something up on Instagram when that gets locked out. Yep.
We'll get that out there,
Yeah. All right.
And if you have a look at Instagram now, my Instagram, Thomas Victor Carroll, you'll see a IGTV little video that I did with a French friend of mine.
Okay.
Recently in France in last August, and I just did a little thing on the meditation, and it'll give you a little insight.
All right. Thank you for your time, Tom.
Yeah, Mike. Good to tune in.
Yeah.
Really good.
All right. Hey there, all you middlemen.